20-year professional pianist. Today, he's here to share ideas on how to accelerate the speed of learning piano. Please welcome Patrick Boland. Mate, g'day. Thanks for joining us.
Good day. Good to be here, Daniel. Thanks for having me.
It's a long way from where you are, but it's close to home for me. And you were mentioning a few moments ago that your wife was here in Taiwan filming a short film. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, and we talked about some of the locations that she used, and there's this, abandoned amusement park up north you were saying, and it sounds exactly like where she did. And I sent you the link. Take a look, take a watch, and you'll be like, "Yeah, okay, that's exactly what we were talking about." Gosh, it sounds like a gorgeous place there for you,
It
and you call
is.
it home, yeah?
It's home for me. Maoris call it a tudonga waiwai. So with Maori culture is you find your belonging place, and then what you do is you return there. So for me, I was probably around about 26, and I travelled to Dubai, and I
Ah,
flew into Dubai, and I was like, "Wow, this is my belonging place," and I felt at home as soon as I moved, as soon as I landed into the airport. I thought, "Wow, this is really interesting." It's a desert surrounded by water. It's growing, it's bustling, and I lived there for 5 years. And then, after my time was done, I moved there, to here. And, once I got here, I said to my daughter, I said, "Should we live here or should we live in Australia?" She said, We'll go to Australia." So we went to Australia for 6 months and came back here.
no
So
way. Okay.
so my son, my daughter, and my wife, we all call it home, and it's a brilliant place. Really, really nice place.
It looks utterly gorgeous. And it
Mm,
seems that, I mean, the food, the people, like, yeah, it sounds like a really lovely paradise. It really does. I cannot wait to visit
it's
someday.
nice. Everybody works, and there's no shame in any type of job. And there's an old saying in Taiwanese that nobody will laugh at you if you have money. So it doesn't matter. It doesn't
I
matter
love
what you
it.
do, as long as you
Yeah.
work and the money's coming in. Nobody's going to look down on you. So we laugh because, a lot of times we walk into our house and we forget to lock the doors, or we'll leave the keys in there, and then we'll come out the next day looking for our keys, and we're like, "Where are they? Oh, it's in the front door."
It's
But
great.
everybody works, everybody respects one another, and, it's a great place for kids. My kids love it because of the culture. You know,
Mm.
you've got Ghost Month, and Ghost Month, everybody's worshipping the spirits and they're worshipping the ancestors, and you gotta make sure that they cross over. Where in Australia, you never have that type of culture. In, the UAE, you don't have that type of culture,
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
here you do, and then you can go down to all the different gods. So you can go down to the god down the street, and he's called the Tutti Gong, and the Tutti Gong is the old man of the land, and this is the god just for this area. Then you go down to the other street, and there's another god just for that area. And then you go
Nice.
down to the city god and the other 5,000 gods. So for spirituality, you're unlimited in choices.
That's
How
great.
did your wife enjoy her experience?
She loved it. She thought it was gorgeous. She did go mid of COVID, like, heart of COVID, though. So
Mm,
there was she had to quarantine for 2 weeks, I think,
mhm,
which was really difficult being in just one room. She had a balcony and everything, but, she couldn't really go outside of it, I don't think, and she was kind of locked up and holed up for 2 weeks, and I'm like, "That is a long time to just be alone." We are social creatures, and so
mm,
we need people. She was able to, like, hang out with our good friend who was also there, who was the cinematographer for the short film. They were just right in adjoining rooms, so their balconies looked out to each other, and they were able to, like, talk and hang out on the balcony for hours and just chill and play cards and stuff like that, but, yeah, she utterly loved it, though. She thought it was beautiful. She loved the people. She definitely talked a lot about the food and the culture there. She thought the people were, like, super humble, really
mm,
lovely, grounded, of the earth
mm,
people, and I just think that's beautiful, and safe. I always kind of mark a good, like, I look at other cultures and I look at other societies, and I'm like, "Okay, are there kids just, like, roaming about?" Right? And I look at Amsterdam, we were there in September, and I saw kids running everywhere. No parents to be seen, you know, just kids bounding about. I look in my little neighborhood here in Los Angeles, kids just roaming about, like no parents need to be around. It's a very, very safe little neighborhood. And then I hear the same thing about Taiwan too. It's like a very safe place. And you talk about your keys in the door, and she mentioned how safe it felt to be
Mm,
there. And I love
mm.
that.
We took, COVID pretty seriously here on the island.
Yeah.
So when
So she
we were
said.
watching
Yeah.
television around the world and saying, shops are being broken into and toilet papers being stolen and there's no food left on the shelf, we're going down to the shops and everything's totally normal. And the government made an announcement, there's plenty of toilet paper. You
Nice.
don't have to rush down there. There's heaps of noodles, you're fine, and there's heaps of masks. So for us, although we did a lot of self-quarantining and we had a lot of social distancing, it was all policed by the individual. So there was no
Mhm.
fun police going around saying, "You gotta do this, you gotta do that." We just do it because we have a very, close proximity to power. So, like in America, if the president says jump, everybody says, "Fuck you, you can't make us jump."
Yeah.
Where here, if the president says jump, we all say how high. And it's because we're very communal. And the purpose of the lockdowns in COVID was to make sure that the people next door didn't contract anything from the neighbor.
Right. Right.
But for Taiwanese, we would always wear masks if we're in the metro. We would always wear masks if we're on the bus. If we had a cold and flu before COVID came around, we would always wear masks because it was always on top of mind is when you live in close proximity to people, we understand that disease spreads very quickly.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
the concept of wearing a mask wasn't having your freedom taken away. It was something that we were doing already as a community. Even the
Yep.
kids at school, if your children are sick and they have to go to school, well, they wear a mask.
Mhm.
So it wasn't like, oh, that person's got COVID, they're a super spreader, keep them away.
Right.
It was
Right.
part of the culture already.
So interesting, because I'm right there with you. I am very sympathetic to a lot of other people. I've lived in cities my entire life, and so I understand that diversity makes us stronger, equality makes us stronger, and I think that being around people make me realize that. But our country, not to justify the opposite sort of opinion, but just to kind of give you a little context, we were our culture is so based on the individual and so based on the frontier,
Mm,
and battling against things that want to kill you on a daily basis, that sort of individuality is just so baked into our establishing culture.
mm,
And I regret that personally. I think that that is very detrimental to it's beneficial for the individual, but it's detrimental to our society.
mm,
And I think more people would benefit from that mindset shift.
mm,
You know, granted though, the majority of our country is rural. The majority of
mm,
our country, people are living miles away from each other. You know, and so that sort of isolation breeds individualism, which
mm,
breeds that sort of isolationism. It's just like it's all associated with that individualism.
mm,
And I'm not like the biggest fan of that because again, I've lived in cities my entire life. So I
mm,
understand you take care of each other, your
mm,
neighbor, even if you
mm,
don't know them.
mm. Well, I grew up in the 80s. So I was born in 1980. And I remember in the 80s and 90s, everybody was still uncle and auntie. So if it was mum and dad's friends coming around, it was Uncle John, Uncle Tom, whoever it was. If they were friends, it was family. And
Mhm,
then in the
mhm.
90s and early 2000s, everything seemed to become Mr. and Mrs.,
Interesting.
which is now one step removed. Because
Yeah.
when I got to Taiwan, it was like coming back into the time machine. And we respected people by calling them uncle and auntie. So everybody who's older than me is either my big brother or big sister in the Chinese language. And everybody who's a little bit older than that is my uncle and auntie. So we're not looking at you belong to that family. It's we belong to the same family. We're in the same village. We're in the same community. I'm going to treat you like family. And so when it comes to the children aren't your children or their children, they're our children. So
Mhm.
when they play, it's the whole village, it's the whole community keeping an eye out for them because
Right.
it's more inclusive rather than exclusive. And so
Right.
when we went through COVID, it's an entire community going through it together. Okay, if I've got it, I'm going to isolate because I don't want to pass it on to you.
Mhm.
And the importance of that is that people don't understand the close proximity. Where I grew up in Australia, we might be like 100 people per square kilometre, where here in some parts of Taipei, it's 24 and 25,000 head per square kilometre.
Yeah.
So if you're farting in your bathroom, the next door neighbour's hearing it. Like that's how close it is. If
It's true.
somebody's sneezing in the building next to me, I can hear it.
Right.
So our duty as a community is to protect each other. Back in 2008, 2009, I was working in the aviation industry and we had swine flu. And what was interesting is that we had flown from Dubai and there was somebody infected on the aircraft. By the time we got into Beijing, the people in the row before, the same row, and the row back all had the swine flu. So the
No.
authorities come onto the aircraft and quarantine all 9 people. And so in the aviation industry, we would see how quickly these things spread. And it's a matter of just minutes and hours for it to spread. So they'd quarantine people. I also went on a holiday to the Philippines and I was flying back. And on these big Emirates aircrafts, the seating configuration is 3, 4, 3. So I was sitting on the left hand side, 3 people, then there was an aisle in the middle. And when I got on the aircraft, the guy to my left coughed the whole time from the Philippines to Dubai, coughing, coughing, coughing. So I've got my hooded jumper pulled over my face, I've got it over
Yeah.
my nose, and I'm trying to survive this 9 hour flight with this person coughing. We landed into Dubai, we got up, and as we walked off the aircraft, because we were closest to the door, as soon as he stepped out of the aircraft, he put a mask on.
What?
And I tapped him on the shoulder and I said, "What the fuck?" I said, "We have just been flying for 9 hours. We've been on that aircraft for 10 hours. You've been fucking coughing on me the whole time, and now you put a mask on?" He said, "Well, you got to be careful in the airport." I said, "Well, what about me sitting on this aircraft for 10 hours?" Now, whatever he had, I woke up that night at midnight sweating and
There
I'd
you go.
contracted it. And I
There you
was
go.
that close. So
Yeah.
we know it in this part of the world because of proximity, not just from being nose to nose on a metro or a bus or an aircraft, but we live so close and it spreads. So I was very proud of the community here.
Yeah, as you should be. That's beautiful. I think it's great. It's such a shame, this individualistic culture. I feel like I don't know. I think we gotta realize that, like, we have to empathize somehow as a species with people that we don't know. We
Mhm.
have to get to that place where we can identify with somebody halfway across the world w- before we move any step closer to like saving our species from overpopulation and draining this world's resources. We have to first be able to identify with somebody that we don't know. And I think at least from my perspective here in America, very far away.
Mhm. The Maoris, they see everybody as one. And I think that's where we have to find a way to get there because as long as we feel that we're separate, that cause and effect equation doesn't process in the mind. What I do has no effect on you. Well, that's not true.
Hmm.
Like when you're driving, I was driving down the freeway the other day and I said to my wife, I said, "This guy's going to have an accident behind us." You know, you just sometimes you see somebody speed up, they slow down, they change this lane, they change that lane. And intuitively, you say, "This is bad for me. This is
Right.
not
Yeah.
good for me." So I hit the brakes and I just let him pass and I let him stay in front of me and he'd speed up and he'd slow down, he'd change lane. And I knew that his driving was going to have an impact on me.
Hmm.
Now, indirectly, it had an impact because I had to be extra cautious. I didn't get to where I was going on time, but he was having the same negative impact on everybody else on the freeway.
Yeah.
And then eventually I said to my wife, I said, "I reckon in the next few moments he's going to have an accident." All of a sudden, I see this bit of plastic fly up into the air, and he's
Oh my God.
T-boned, ran into the back of a truck.
Oh
Now,
God.
once he ran into the back of the truck, he took off again, and so now the truck's chasing him down the freeway.
Oh my God. This is like comedy if it wasn't true.
Yeah, I was watching him, and I wound down the window and I said, "You can't park there." and,
Yeah, yeah,
all
right,
these little
right,
things. So he gave us a little bit of joy for the day, but, all of our actions have an impact, whether we see them or not, even at a physical level, but even at emotional level. It's like with music. In music, there's the principle of sympathetic resonance. And if the string of D is vibrating on your piano and you're on that side of the room, it's going to be vibrating on my piano at this side of the room.
Mhm,
And just like piano strings have a vibration and a frequency, emotions have a frequency. And if
so
I
true.
bring a particular emotion into a room, then
Huge.
because of the principle of sympathetic resonance, you're going to start to absorb that emotion,
Mhm,
whether you like it or not, whether you want to or not. So even
so
if we
true.
can see it, it can't see it, it still has an impact on other people. And we've got to be so mindful.
We've gotta be so mindful about those things. And even regardless of proximity,
Mm,
because like, we're not gonna be able to be in proximity to another country across the world that is trying to, I don't know, lower their global emissions by a certain percentage, or like European Union, like neither of our countries are a part of the European Union, but we can still at least appreciate the fact that they're trying their best in terms
mm,
of global emissions, lowering that. And I think about that and I'm like, well, why can't we also feel that too? Why
mm,
can't people here in America feel that as well? That like, okay, we got to do this as a species, okay? We have to figure this out together as a species, regardless of proximity. Yeah, we are sharing the same world.
mm,
That's, I guess, the proximity that I'm talking about.
mm. In this part of the world, there's a lot of manufacturing done. And on the other side of the world, they like to consume.
Mm,
So they consume as long as they're getting their shirts for $5 or $10, then what's happening on the other side of the world is out of sight, out of mind.
right.
And then they visit there and they go, "Oh, how disgusting. Look at the pollution." Well, it's cause and effect. You want the $5 cheap clothes. You don't want to pay your local rates, and you're happy for that person to have the pollution problem. That is also your problem.
It is
It's
also
like
your problem.
when they had the earthquakes in Japan and the nuclear reactors got flooded, the water got sucked out there to the west coast of America.
Yes.
It's it's all cause and effect. It's all connected. It's in that enclosed, if we have a firmament or not, we might. It's an enclosed ecosystem.
Right, right, right,
And we're
right,
killing,
right.
and in those instances, we're hurting ourselves, but we don't
Yeah.
see it because it's culture. Here we are connected. We are educated that we are not one, we are many, and what we do impacts somebody else. But it's the
Mm,
education where in Australia you're individualistic. At
mm.
school, I remember in the 1990s, we'd hold our arms out like this. This is my personal space. You're not allowed inside of my personal space. This belongs to me. You come in here, I'm going to sue you. Where over here,
Whoa.
it's like, well, this is our space and we've got to fit in here together and we've got to get along.
Yeah.
We've got to get
So
along.
so
Your feet
interesting.
might be near my nose when I'm sleeping, so you better wash your feet.
Right, right.
All
Oh, I
these
love it.
little
I
things.
love I love the mention of music that is, the sympathetic frequency. There's also, where you play a single note on any instrument, it has all of these other notes on top of it too. We got
Mm,
the fundamental frequency, and then you got the harmonics above it
mm,
too that also resonate across the world, across, as far as it can be heard. Those
mm,
other frequencies are also being resonating too. So it's a whole spectrum of resonation here, but you get that so I find that so interesting that there's like the fundamental and then there's tangential frequencies above that, and everything surrounding is resonating within those, you know. Um, so yeah, everybody's combined. We're all resonating. And we all just have to be in harmony together, don't we? We all gotta try.
we
Gotta
do.
try.
We do. I started to learn the guitar when I had learning disabilities. And what I noticed was that, first of all, I couldn't hear properly. They said that I was tone deaf. Later on, I learned that there was no such thing as tone deafness, but I had some processing problems. But I
Interesting.
knew that if one string was out when I was tuning the guitar, everything else would be out. And it was really interesting because somebody would say, "Gee, that sounds horrible." I'd
Yeah.
say, "Well, it sounds fine to me over here." but they would say, You haven't tuned the guitar properly." And you could be too high or too low, and nothing seemed to resonate. And I think that's with people as well. It's very
Mm,
similar. We all have our own musical note, whether we know it or not. And sometimes our musical note's out of tune because of our attitude.
so
We're
true.
going to spend some time to tune it in. That'd be an interesting conversation. Um, what is harmonics?
What is harmonics?
Mm,
It is the note that you're playing vibrates the air that because everything is a vibration, right? So you get the whatever note that you're either singing because your vocal cords are literally vibrating within your throat that is pushing air out of your mouth that's vibrating at a certain frequency, and that is hitting our ears, and we feel that pressure, and we hear that pressure, and our brain turns that into sound. Okay, and so that's what we process as sound is simply the waves of the world of the air around us vibrating, right? Those vibrations, there's always an up and down, right? There's always a peak and a high, peak and a high, peak and a high, right? You break those down into duples. You take one big one big high and one big low. You break it in half. That's a harmonic above it. That is also that is also the air is also vibrating at that tone too. Same thing, break it in half. Same thing, break it in half. Same thing, break it in half, right? And that supposedly goes on for infinity. But
mm,
of course, we can only hear a certain amount of hertz. Our ears are very limited, right? And then you also get the volume too, you know. So we can only hear to a certain volume decibel level, you know, low and high. And so you get that spectrum, but within that spectrum, all of those notes are resonating at the same time as that one fundamental note is because of the waves and the highs and it vibrating the air at the mathematics is cut in half. You know,
mm,
every cut in half, every cut in half, every cut in half because it's pushing the air. It's a ripple effect kind of thing.
mm.
Yeah. So it's all
So
physics at the end of the day
we have 12 musical notes,
within an
and then
octave. Yeah.
half notes, and then we have octaves. How many musical notes does that then give us in our range? Because I know most
Well,
humans can hear from about 8 hertz through to about 20,000 hertz.
yeah, that's about right. Yeah.
That's
I
the
love it.
golden retriever getting ready
I
to do his
love
zoomies.
it. Um,
He's going to be in trouble off Mama.
that sort of that metric 8 to 20,000, it totally depends on the scale that you're using. There's a lot of different types of scales like hertz wise that I use in my digital audio workspace. Like there's literally negative hertz. Okay, it's
Mm,
weird, but you know we got all the way from like negative 70 to negative 80 even all the way up to like it's like 5 or 6. It's weird how like the scale is like something like that.
mm.
Um, but what was I gonna say?
And even those ones at
Notes,
negative
right?
7, like negative 70, just because we don't hear it with the ear and process it consciously, the body still feels it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Those like sub bass
Mm,
feels that we get. I don't know if you hear like if you guys have it in Taiwan or anything like that, but we've got people that love to put subwoofers in their cars. And they love to just drive around having their car rattle and
bass drop.
shake with these low bass notes, right? Now, what's happening there is that the literal wave of that note, the literal wave is like 8 feet long, okay?
Mm,
So the actual speaker itself is vibrating to create a wave of air that is like 8 or 9 feet long. That's why a grand piano is 12 feet long because those low notes, right? We need a string that is that long to create the most perfect or the
mm,
closest version to perfect of such a low frequency. Okay. We need just one whip. You can't see my hand, but we need that one whip of that string to create the perfect version of that note. Otherwise, it's a bunch of small little whips that are somehow cobbling together to create what sounds like a lower note, when in reality, it's actually not. The fundamental frequency of a low, low bass, let's call it A0, which is a part of the zero, the first octave of a piano, right? A0 is the first note. Okay. And that note on a regular upright piano, that string is only about 4 feet long, but it's thick, right?
Mm.
Now, what it's doing is it's actually resonating at all of these different frequencies. That creates a very muddy sound. Okay. And so because it's so short and because it's so thick, it creates a muddy sound, but our brain cobbles it together to make it kind of sound like that low, low note. But if you look at it on a computer or if you look at it on an actual decibel level, spectrum, you'll notice that the loudest tone of that lowest note is not A0. No. The loudest tone is like B2 or like a it's actually no, sorry. It's A2 is the loudest tone, which is A in the second octave of the piano. And so, but then it just like totally dips down. There's a bunch of other frequencies below that, and our brain cobbles all of that together to make it feel and sound like it's that low note. It's quite
Mhm.
fascinating if you think about it. But
Mhm.
where was I going here? Nonetheless, it is one of those things that's like, yeah, we can all hear that all the way down to whatever you say, 8 hertz, right? Or
Mhm.
4 hertz or something like that, and all the way up to 20,000, but we're still getting the wave
Mhm.
of that sound if it's way below that, you know?
Mhm.
If it's way below that, we're still gonna feel the actual vibration of the air around us. We're absolutely going to perceive it. We may not hear it, but we'll perceive it for sure.
Mhm. Like that, the subwoofers. My brother and I used to have them in our car and would have 15-inch subwoofers, and I think he had a 17, and somebody else had a 21-inch subwoofer. And you had a
Jesus
box, and then you
Christ.
had a port to let the air out.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
if it
yeah,
was a
yeah.
really, you'd have to put a port in there. And if it was a really clear night, no wind, and there wasn't a lot of urban sounds, we could hear somebody doing a bass drop 10 to 15 minutes drive away. You could hear this, "Boom, boom,
Pretty cool.
boom." And then if you were the one driving, we knew that we could drive down the high street and really crank the bass, and it would do that bass drop, and the whole car, I had a Datsun 1600. It was a 1972 model, and everything would rattle.
Yeah.
The metal between the shell and the inside's all
Yeah,
rattling,
yeah,
and
yeah,
so you're
yeah,
getting
yeah.
it getting all the space filler and trying to fill it in, but you could hear that rattle, and you'd look around, you could hear it forever.
Yeah,
You could
yeah, it's
hear it,
pretty
and
crazy.
it has a sometimes you could even it was like a feeling, like, I can feel it before I can really process it, but it was like that pulse.
Yeah. 'Cause you're not even you can't even when you're that close to the speaker, right? You literally can't even hear the
Mm,
true resonance of a tone like that. Because if you're in the way of that 8-foot wave,
mm,
you're not getting the full hit of
mm,
that wave. You're not hearing it. You literally can't process it because you're in the middle of the wave, you
mm,
know? At that point, it's more of a resonance thing. It's more of a feel than
mm,
anything like that. You're gonna hear something and it's gonna be muddy. It's not gonna be the perfect version of that tone because you haven't gotten we need space in
mm,
between we need air in between our speakers and our ear for us to be able to process sound properly.
mm,
Because that's just how air works. That's it works as the what do you call that? The filament, right?
mm,
Of sound is what sound travels in. The
mm.
medium that sound travels in is air. And so we need that distance. When you're that close to your big 20 something inch subwoofer, you're feeling it,
Rockford
sure, but
Fosgate.
you're not hearing it. No way. Your body's somehow trying to process it, but it's doing a terrible job
Mm,
if at all.
mm. And it's interesting, what we would do is we would just want that bass, but you'd take out all the treble. And so you'd take out all the notes and the songs, and it wasn't music per se, it was like a frequency and a pulsation, but then you would bring back the treble and the high pitches to bring in that song, and the experience would change. I felt that with those higher notes, you could be in very close proximity. We used to have those little speakers called a tweeter, and
Yeah.
they just seemed so loud, like it'd almost pierce the ear. It was
Yeah.
that ear, and that's only, 12 inches away from your face, but it
Oh
was
my
so
god.
loud.
Oh my god, you should never be that close to that type of speaker. That'll
Well,
that'll
the
kill your hearing.
the car that my brother had was a, Morris Minor Ute, and it was a two-seater, and it was a 1960 car. You could literally get a crank, and you could crank start the car.
Oh,
So
wow.
we'd take it to school and, we would muck around and would say, "Oh, the car's not starting," so we'd crank start it at school. That was back in 1996. We're still doing that.
Wow.
But his cabin, so I'm 6 foot, my head's virtually touching the roof. If 2 of us were sitting in there, we'd be squashed like this. There was no room.
Mm.
The windscreen was probably all of 9 inches in front of your face. That was it. It was just such a tiny cabin, and then there was 2 subwoofers behind the seat. They must have been 15-inch, and there must have
Jesus.
been a 19-inch in the ute back enclosed, so it would just pump all that air straight in the cabin. But
Freaking
it was
nuts,
louder
man.
outside than it was inside,
Yeah,
except for
yeah,
those
that's what I'm
tweeters.
saying. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. It's louder outside than it is
Mm,
inside because you literally can't hear the sound that is being created in that. It's just
mm,
it's baffling to me that, like, why would you ever do that? If you
mhm,
can't witness the beauty or the perfection of a sound like that, what's the point? Tell me,
mhm,
please clarify this for me as someone who has never understood this. Is it
mhm.
is it, you know, I don't know, just a show of force or something or what? Why'd you do it?
I think it was to get people's reaction.
Okay, okay.
It was reaction. It was reaction because, when we were growing up, we'd have what's called Maccanats. So in Australia, we call McDonald's
Okay.
Maccas,
Mm.
and then there's a street race in Australia called, Summer Nats. And so Maccanats was like the weekly drive-through. So what you do is on a Thursday night, everybody's hanging out at Macca's, and you'd go there, and you'd either have a low car, and you'd be, like, judged based on how low it was, or it was the size of the wheels, or you'd have a sound off. And so we might not have been
Got
able to
it.
compete with
Okay.
the expensive cars, but we had the sound system. So we would drive down there for the reactions.
Copy. Okay, this all makes sense.
So this called
Of course, it's the
Maccanats,
reactions.
and
Mac and Nets.
and then on that same strip were the nightclubs. So whilst everybody's, lining up for the nightclubs, but we're only 17 and we can't go, we'd go past and we'd do bass drops.
There you
Because our
go.
sound system was louder than the nightclub.
There
So
you
everybody would
go.
turn their heads and look.
That makes total sense. Right, of course. Why else would you be doing it besides, like, getting a reaction out of people around you? Of
Yeah,
course.
yeah, well, the girls didn't. The problem is when you think, when you're 17 and 18, you think you're gonna have a hot car and a good sound system, all the girls are gonna come and talk to you, but the girls just think you're wankers,
Yeah.
but it's all the guys who come and talk to you. You're like, "I don't wanna talk to these guys, I want the girls to talk to me." Then you go to the petrol station and no girls look at the car, it's just some old dude coming talking to you about when he used to own that car when he was
Yeah.
20. This is not why I got this car. I wanted to talk to the girls.
I'm talking to the old guys who loves the car. No, that's not the point. Of course. It's like
It's
it's
like the
a
guy who goes to the gym and gets big. The only people who come and talk to him are the other guys in the gym.
yeah, right, exactly. Yeah. Whereas I was in marching band and I was surrounded by women, surrounded by girls my age. And, one time we were at this, conference or something like that, and we were at the, Steak and Shake. It's a, where you can get burgers and stuff. And we were sitting there and having a great time, me and, all my girlfriends around me. The majority of my friends were women back then, and, high school girls. And so we all were hanging out, and the soccer team comes walking on in, of all guys, right? And we're laughing, and then they look over at me, they see me surrounded by girls, and I wave to them, and they're, like, talking to each other, and then I go up and I get a drink from the fountain drinks and everything, and one of them comes up to me and is like, "How do you do it, man?" And I'm like, "What do you mean?" Like, "How are you friends with all these girls? You have so many friends who are girls, how do you do it?" And I turn directly to him, and I'm like, just be yourself. Just be yourself. Don't try to be anybody that you don't want to be. And he was like, and I'm like, and I walk off. I feel like I just like imparted this like big wisdom onto him. And I just felt so proud of myself at that moment, you know? Just be yourself, man.
I think it's good advice. I was cabin crew. I was an air steward, and my mates would say, "Danny, are you gay?" I'm like,
Of course. Of
"What?"
course.
They're like, "You're going to be cabin crew. You're going to be an air steward. You're going to serve chicken and beef." I said, "You've got it all wrong." I
Yeah.
said, "There might be a couple of gay guys, and I'll be the straight guy surrounded by 17 of the hottest women from around the world." And they're like, "Oh, now I get it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's
Now
like,
I get
oh,
it."
oh, oh, oh. Oh, now I get it.
Now I
Okay.
get it. Now I get it. So, uh, even it was so different because I would go and you get some gay guys, you get along with them, but then you'd have all these women and people who are like, oh my gosh, you're living the life. And one of my mates come over and he's done very well for himself, and he said, "I'm so jealous of your lifestyle." He said, "You hop on the plane, you go to work with 15 hot chicks, you'll go to New York, you'll travel around with them, you'll come back to Dubai, then you'll get another crew, you'll go to Bangkok, you'll hang out with them." I said, "This is the life." He said, "I'm trying to make millions of dollars to have that life, but I still can't have it." So
Yeah.
we used to say it's the champagne lifestyle on the lemonade wage.
I like that. That's really good.
But it was
Oh,
a
that's a good
It's
analogy.
a privileged thing, and I think, for guys who are more emotionally intelligent, being
Right.
in the band or being cabin crew, is you're out of your comfort zone, but you learn to have conversations with the opposite sex.
Mhm.
And one of the big problems here in the Eastern world at the moment, especially in Taiwan, we officially have the world's lowest birth rate, and
Interesting.
it's phenomenal. And when I look at the men, they're highly intelligent. They work hard, they study hard, they're scholarly, they're studious, they're intelligent, but they've spent so much time studying and in school that they've forgot how to have social interactions.
Mhm.
So there's a level of social awkwardness. And if you have a level of social awkwardness from a man with a woman, there's no way that you're going to get any intimacy because it starts with that conversation.
Mhm.
It's going beyond what do you do for work, it's what do you like to do with your life?
Mhm.
Why did you buy those shoes? Who were you with when you bought the shoes? For men, shopping is a process. Go there, get it done. But for
Yeah.
women, it's more of an experience.
Mhm.
And so we
What were
see
you
here
drawn
with
to? Why were you drawn to those shoes? And what about them do you like?
mm,
You know?
how does it
Those
make you
kind of
feel
questions. How
when
does it
you
make
wear
you
them?
feel? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, where men's like the logic of it, okay, it's a 6-inch heel and there's 30 centimeters squared leather there. Well, that would calculate to a $2.50 bill. And you paid $250. Now I'm going to lecture you because it's a terrible purchase.
Right, right.
So the men here, they're very logical, but they can't have relationships. So this is impacting the sex. And so they're not intimate. They're not having relationships. They're preferring to be single. And it's a
Interesting.
major problem over here. Officially, the world's lowest birth rate. We have a higher death rate than birth rate. And we see it because uh, pediatricians are going out of business. The hospitals that deliver just the babies are shutting down. The daycare centers are shutting down. The primary school centers are shutting down. The schools are already shutting down. And the universities are already shutting down.
Get out of here.
It's already a major problem. And it was just in the news yesterday, the lowest birth rate. But from my perspective, with emotional intelligence, I draw it back to they've forgot how to relate. Like
Mm,
we can relate to music, we
mhm.
can relate to a television program, we can relate to a platform game, but we can't relate to another human.
You talk
We
about
can't.
that intersocially, intra-species and interpersonal conversations,
Mhm,
but how does that affect your relationship to your society? Does that
mm.
does that diminish the, uh, that ability to empathize with the larger whole? your inability to be interpersonal with somebody else?
Mhm.
I'm curious your thoughts.
I think because of the culture, the empathy is there. The empathy is there. What I do see is social awkwardness, and I believe that that social component is so essential in the younger years at school, because boys tend to play soccer, and let's just pretend that girls like to do the arts for a moment. And so they're separated at school. They're not interacting together.
Mm,
And then as they go through school, you've got your boys' schools and you've got your girls' schools, but they dedicate too much time to study. So in Taiwan, there's a couple of different levels of challenges here. Is that for children under 14, the greatest cause of death is self harm. So what's that from? Number one, they're not sleeping. And if you're not sleeping, it's very hard to interact socially because you don't have the energy.
right.
If you're not sleeping enough, you can't manage your emotions. So you can
Mhm.
manage your own emotions, but now how do you manage the emotions of other people when you're interacting?
Right.
And then the other problem is that sometimes school starts at 7 a.m. for a lot of children and doesn't finish till 10 or 11 at night.
No, how do we do that? How do you manage that schedule? You don't. You
You
go
don't.
crazy.
You don't. In this part of the world, they have a what's called a 996 culture. So you
Okay.
work from
Yeah,
9
I've
a.m.
heard of
till
this,
9
yeah.
p.m. 6 days a week, and that
Silicon Valley
leaves
has taken that as well. Silicon Valley up in San Francisco.
yeah,
Yeah, they've taken that sort of culture and used it to their own as well.
yeah, and it leaves you no time to be social, because
Right.
for a relationship you need time. It's like playing the piano. You can't get good by practicing perfect. It's practicing over time. It's like you
Mhm.
can't say to somebody, "Oh, wow, that was a great interaction. It was 30 seconds." Well, I can get that at McDonald's. To get good with human relationships, you need to have bulk periods of time with people.
Mm.
And
Mhm.
it's also a parental problem. There was studies done years ago that came out of America, and it said that the average parent spent more time brushing their teeth than in direct conversation with their children. So as
No.
we layer it in, mum and dad are away. They're spending more time at work than they are with the children. They spend less than 2 minutes of time interacting with the children. And so they go,
Wow.
"Oh, that was a great 2 minutes of interaction." It's like you can't enjoy music for 2 minutes.
No.
Like, my favorite song, I wanna play it over and over and over and over and over and over and over
Right.
again. So there's all these different layers, and when you're book smart and you get good grades, then you've had to sacrifice the social skills,
Yeah.
because books don't talk back, people do. Books have one opinion and one perspective, people don't. And so you need time with people, but that time is not available to them. So even the government at the moment, they're trying to pass bills in parliament at the moment that the school day is reduced from
Good.
say 7 a.m. till 4 p.m. And the way that I'm personally tackling this is my specialization is emotional intelligence. And I look at my children and say, you could be straight A students. You could have 100% in every single grade, and you'll probably be miserable for the rest of your life. You won't know anyone. You won't know anything outside of the book. You won't know the world. You won't understand people. So, uh, as a father, I say you can go to school in the morning. I'll get you there at 7:15. You can start at 7:30, but you're not doing the extra classes. It's not. I'm not going to force you to do it. If you want to do it, you can, but I won't force you. So my boy, some days he finishes at 12:30, but other kids are there till 4. Other
Mm.
days he'll finish at 3:30 and the other kids are there till 5. My daughter will come home at 4 o'clock, finish school, but the other kids will be studying till 7 or 8.
Wow.
And then what we do is we prioritize family time, bulk of time together. And then we prioritize sleep, because
Yeah.
I know that long term sleep deprivation, if you just have 5 bad nights of sleep, you're 400% more likely to have a cold and a flu.
Yep.
And if you get cold and flu, or if you're stressed, you're more likely to get cancer later on. It's too
Mm.
big of a risk. So I say to my kids, let's prioritize sleep. If you come home with a B grade, but you've given it your best, there'll be no love withheld. I'll still love you 100%, but I want you to be holistically healthy because all these people can get 100% at school. And I guarantee you, once they get out, they won't succeed socially. They won't get along in the world because they don't know how. They'll be 20 years behind. But in the real world, you get paid for your personality.
Yeah.
Like you could be the best concert pianist, but you could have a terrible performance on the stage, meaning that you don't connect, you don't empathize with the audience. Where you could maybe be in the top 10%, but you might be able to get the audience going up on their feet.
Totally.
You're going to win. You're
Totally.
going to sell more records every time,
Oh,
like
100%.
Post Malone.
Yeah. Yeah, no, no, seriously, the guy's an incredible personality, and
Mm,
he's extremely charismatic on stage.
mm,
His music is okay, not the
yeah,
worst, you know,
not the
but
best.
also not the best. But that being said, his strong suit is his charisma for sure.
Mm,
Yeah, very
and
interesting.
that
I love that.
and
I
that's a
love hearing
social
that,
skill.
like, that you prioritize those things. I think it's very important. And I think you're
Well, I
doing
know.
something very different than I guess a lot of people in your culture are in Taiwan. You
Well,
know,
I know
you're
from my life is I was diagnosed with linear sequential learning disability when I was at school. So they said
what is that?
it basically what it means is it's really hard to learn in sequence, like A, B, C, D, one, two, three, where my
Interesting.
mind is more lateral. It wants to do other things. And when I learned music, it was very hard because I was visually impaired. So I couldn't see the notes on the ledger.
Well,
You
that's a
know,
problem
you
right
might
off the
put
bat.
this one here and my eyes seeing it over here and I can't make sense of it. And I used to say to my music teacher, could you just teach me like a pop song? Because I know I can't see the ledger. I know I can't quite hear the music properly. But if you teach me a pop song, I know I'm going to be motivated to learn it. And so that was my first challenge with music was that I it was so strict and so rigid and
Yeah.
there was no joy. Like I'm learning, "Oh, Danny boy, the pipes are piping." I'm like, no 9-year-old really wants to learn that.
No.
But once I got to school and they said, "Hey, here are the drums," I was like, "Oh, drums, yeah, teach me Metallica."
Perfect. Oh, that's cool.
And I could
That makes
remember it.
sense.
I
Yeah.
didn't necessarily have to be able to read it to be able to play it. And then I
Right.
learned later on a lot of musicians, like say new metal musicians, they weren't necessarily reading sheet music. They were playing by ear or they were
Yeah.
watching somebody else and picking it up. And that's what I wanted. And so, for my experience when I grew up, my school always rewarded you for grades, but you were punished for the arts. You know, if you were good at sports, that didn't look good. If you were good in woodwork or technics class, that wasn't all that good because it was a grammar school and they want you to have straight A's. So you
Right.
were punished. But even if you had great social skills and you interacted, there was no scorecard for that. There was no scorecard
No.
for being a class clown or having a little bit of charisma or a little bit of charm,
No.
or there was no scorecard for lifting somebody up when they were feeling down. It was
Right.
all just logic. So because I didn't fit that box, it was like, you're disabled.
Yeah. 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 I had a similar. I didn't know that it's a sequential issue. No, I was a really bad reader when I was younger. I wasn't able to read properly. Um,
What would happen?
I just very slow at picking up the skill of reading. And so by 3rd grade, I was way behind, and I was in the special ed class for reading at that point. At that time, my grandmother was here in Los Angeles. I was in Chicago. I grew up in Chicago, and so my grandmother was here in Los Angeles, and she heard of the fact she was a retired teacher. She heard that I was really behind on reading, and she sold all of her stuff. She packed up and moved to Chicago to be my tutor, and
Mm,
she was my after school tutor for 3 years. And I was able to get way up to past my grade level in reading by the time she was done with me. I would never have been able to do it with otherwise, you know.
mm,
Um, I was not a good student. No, not at all. I was really good at the extracurriculars like theater and band and singing and choir and socializing. I was really good at that, and I had charisma. And I was not good at history, science, math. You know, it's just not. I don't thrive in
mm.
scholastic environments. My parents knew that, so they never punished me for not getting amazing grades. I was a solid B student, you know, but I was not the best.
Mm,
Anyway, that being said, I think that's one of the reasons why I didn't have a really good interaction with traditional methods of learning how to play an instrument. You know, same with you. Uh, it was very frustrating for me to try to like perfect these songs that I hated. You
mm,
know, I didn't like having to learn these terrible little tunes in these books in sequence. I really wanted to like mess around and learn through flow and improvise. And so, yeah, I took 8 years of lessons and I hated every second of it. Not my thing. Not my thing. And I ended up
What
finding my own way. I ended up finding my own way of teaching myself how to play. And that
one
ostensibly is what I created. I turned that into an app later down the
mhm.
road.
One thing that I really found challenging was learning from the guitar was I was trying to mirror my teacher. So I would sit here, they'd sit where you are,
Hands are
and I'm trying to
reversed.
look at their hands, but it's all like reversed inside of my mind. I'm like, that doesn't work. Like, and I would always try to sit sideways
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
look over their guitar. I'm like, if I can do that, I can pick it up, but I'm trying to flip this around in my head, and
Yeah.
your hand's over there and my hand's over here, and I don't get it.
Yeah.
But it was like it was so strict. Like, oh no, this is how you learn. And the other thing my music teacher had was he had three Alsatian dogs, and they were these big dogs. They had heaps of hair, and his house used to stink of dogs. And you'd
That does
get the
not help.
green oil, and you'd put the green oil on the fan, and it's like smell of wet dog mixed with green oil. And I'd have to go there for an hour. I'm just like, it smells so bad that I can't learn because of this the smell.
Oh
But it was
no.
interesting learning music. I never was asked, I was told I had to go because I had these learning disabilities and it was going to help with my speech. It was going to help with my sound. There was kind of no benefit in it for me. And I
Hmm.
was like, why am I learning this? Why am I learning it like that? Why can't you give me a song that's important to me, one that I want to learn? Like I used to beg the music teacher, like, "Can't you teach me this?" "Oh, no, we can't do that. We're gonna go through page 1, 2, 3, 4, and we're gonna get you to the conservatorium of music where they're gonna judge you if you can play or not." Well, I don't wanna be judged if I can play or not. I just wanna play. I just
Yeah.
wanna make sound.
Right. That's not your goal. Your goal isn't to go to school for it. No.
Mhm.
Your goal is to just to enjoy it. Your
To enjoy
teacher
it.
your teacher didn't adapt, didn't adjust to the way that you wanted to be taught.
No.
No.
It was so classical that it was painful.
Yeah, I hear
It
you.
was like you've gotta put your thumb on the back of the neck of the guitar, and it's gotta stay there. But I'm looking at, Kurt Cobain and Dave Grohl, and, they're playing guitar and their
They anchor
thumbs
the
over the
thumb.
top, and I'm like,
Yeah.
"But they're doing it. Why do I have to do it like this? Why do I have to have these nylon strings? Why can't I have the metal strings?
Metal
Why do I have to
strings.
learn on the acoustic and then go to the electric? Why
Right.
can't I start on the electric? Like, why can't I have one of those pedals and go, wow, wow, wow? Like, do that
Well, you
on
know,
be
you
hooked.
in retrospect, of course, I hope you understand that you could have. You could have. But
Absolutely,
it's
and I
just
knew
your
it then,
teacher that was telling you no.
and I knew it then.
You knew
I
that.
knew it then, and we had access to all these musical instruments. My parents owned a pawnbroking business. They would buy and sell secondhand goods, so, I could have had a Fender Stratocaster as my very first guitar. I could have had
Nice.
the best guitar back then. There was guitars that we had that were worth $5,000 back then, and I would have been able to have them, but it was like,
Wow.
"You gotta learn on this, and then you gotta do that, and then you go, give me the 12 string."
No problem. Do you know 85% of people drop out of music lessons? 85% drop out at the end of high school because, and they cite boredom with the way that they're being taught
Mm,
or frustration, and get this, with the way that they're being taught. So the issue isn't the fact that people don't want to learn the instrument or don't even want to play the instrument. No, no, no. The issue is the methodology.
mm,
That's the issue. I find that utterly fascinating.
mm. When you were learning to read, what do you think the obstacle was for you for reading?
I was bored. I was very bored. Yeah, my ADHD brain was just like going off and wandering to places because I didn't want to learn that one song and I didn't want to repeat the same thing over and over and over to perfection.
Mm.
Those were the two things that got in the way. Number one, couldn't care less about the tunes that I'm trying to learn. Number two, they weren't like inherently beautiful for me or they weren't fun to play, right? Number two, I had to repeat the same thing over and over and over. And then I brought it to my teacher the week after. They stamped their approval or said, no, you need to continue practicing that song to perfection. And then I have to go back and have to practice that same song the entire week. No,
Mhm.
no. It's just that perfectionism killed me. Absolutely
Mhm.
killed me. What about
Mhm.
you? I mean, besides your teacher, I'm assuming it sounds like it was mainly your teacher, right? Because you really enjoyed playing. It was just the way that you were being taught was your the thing that was holding you up.
For me, I had a couple of processing issues. So the plates in my skull weren't formed. So they were pushing down the left and right hemisphere.
Oh wow.
So I was very inherently emotional, and it was very hard to process the information because it would get lost. Um, I had a visual impairment. I had 20/20 vision, but what I saw in the paper and what processed through my mind and what came out on the piano or on the fingers was something totally different.
Interesting.
And then because the pressure built up inside the head, I couldn't hear. So
Hmm.
if I made a mistake, I actually couldn't hear it. So that was some processing issues for me. But when I started to learn the Chinese language, which, it's almost musical as well because there's so many different intonations and tones, I found that a female teacher, and even happens today, has a different tone to a man. So they say these words in a very high pitch. It's like octaves higher than I can get my voice.
Right.
And they say it and I can't process it. So I say, I need you to slow it down and I need you to drop it down to a tone that I can actually process because I can't hit that tone. It's way too high. It's all the way up there.
Right. Right.
That's the first problem. And I still have that problem today. So I say, slow down. I need you to do it slowly because I've got to be able to process it. And then, secondly, my mouth as an English speaker hasn't developed the same shapes as somebody who speaks Chinese because
Yeah.
the mouth and the tongue and the lips are in different positions. So, secondly, it's got to be visual. So, when I went to university to learn, the teacher's back is towards the class. So, that visual component I'm missing.
Mm.
Sometimes I've got to say, where do you put your tongue to get that tone? Where do you put the tongue? What do the lips look like? And my son's really good with it because he understands how I learn. He says, Dad, uh, in Chinese, we don't open our mouth too big. But in American English, you open your mouth right up. So you get the vowel sound.
Vowel. Right. Right.
Vowel. But here, you keep it tighter. So he says, Dad, you got to tighten your mouth. And I'm like, oh, that makes sense. But then I don't have the
Interesting.
muscle uh, use. So I've got to develop the muscle shape now. So for me, it's both tonal and visual. If
Very
I
interesting.
can't see it in the mouth, really hard for me to process. And it's not like English. It's not like we have 26 letters in the alphabet. I forget now. But here there's like Uh, you
27?
can say the same thing 5
27.
different with 5 different tones, and it means 5 totally different things.
Right. 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 Right.
It's like
Yeah.
playing a different note on a different octave. It has a totally different meaning.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I've
Yeah.
gotta be able to hear it, and I've gotta be able to see it, and if I can see it was like with the guitar. If I can see where you're putting your fingers, yeah, now I can model it or copy it immediately.
Interesting. Yeah, that's it. That's very interesting. It's a processing thing. It's the
Gotta
processing thing
process it.
that yeah, that makes total sense, of course.
Mm.
I'm always so interested to hear like what stopped you from learning. Is there anything that the curriculum could have done or the teacher could have done to fix it? Do you have any ideas? Because in my mind, when you're like, I want to learn this one song, what can you just teach me this one song? Your teacher probably was thinking, no, Daniel, this is too
That's
difficult.
not how you
You're
do
not
it.
gonna be able to play this song right off the bat, and if I try to break it down for you, you're gonna get extremely frustrated and bored in the process. So, no, like, let's just keep knocking through what we gotta knock through. I'm curious in your mind, though, is there anything that could have happened or could have worked for you? Um, any sort of intervention or any different methodology?
Mhm. Let's say Metallica's Enter Sandman. Boom, boom, however it starts. I only cared about doing that first thing. I didn't care about the rest of the song. I just wanted to do the introduction. That's what I wanted. And if my teacher would have said, Daniel, I'll teach you that. And if I teach you that, would you learn this? I would have said, yes, absolutely, I will. Because I knew if I could just play that first bit of Enter Sandman or nothing, sorry, nothing else matters, I would have gone, I'm willing to learn the other stuff to get to the next level where it gets a little bit harder.
Okay.
I would have done that because I would
Yeah,
have
the
had
motivation.
the motivation. So it was a motivational piece. You teach me this, my mind will then want to learn the other things because I know it's more technical. Also, that was the first thing. Also, with the reading of the music off the ledger, I never understood why it was important. There was no
For
understanding
guitar, it's a different thing, like,
of
you don't
of
really
why.
need to know how to read Western notation
Mhm.
for guitar. You if you wanna learn classical, we can teach you tablature, or we could actually teach you how to read notation in the treble
Mhm.
clef, for sure. Um,
I was learning
mo
flamenco. I'm like, Why do I want to learn flamenco?" I'm like, 11. That's not what I
no.
want to listen. That's not what I want to
That's
play.
not what you listen to. So it's a genre thing. Number 1,
Genre, yeah.
you were learning a different genre of music than you were interested in,
Mm,
a different technique than you were
mm,
interested in, right?
mm,
And, there was also a problem of motivation, right?
mm.
Anything else? I'm so curious if there's any other interventions that could have helped.
Who plays "Ode to Joy" at 11 years old?
Bum, 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 bum. You're right. You're right.
Yeah, I think it was that. Um, Definitely, I liked bands probably like Nirvana or whoever was hot in the early '90s. I would have liked all of that, and if I would have been able to play like that, it wouldn't have mattered what the guitar was, whether
Right.
it was an acoustic with nylon strings or metal strings. It wouldn't have mattered. What was important was doing something that I was interested in,
Yep.
and then build on it from there. Okay, here's the basic. Here's the chorus, which everybody wants to play, and this is how everything else fits together. That would have been really good. But I think the gap was probably the age with the teacher. He was a lovely guy, but too big a age gap. It was probably like maybe 60, 50 or 60-year age gap.
Yeah.
It was too much. It was like, nice. I'm sure you're a master, but it's just too big a gap. Like, give me somebody who's a little bit closer to where I am.
I wonder if the note behind the note is we always like to talk about that in the entertainment industry. We get notes all the time from so many different people, and you can see a note and you can say like, "I don't like that note." Or you could think, "Wait, what are their intention
Mhm,
behind that note?" Right? And then maybe fix the problem that comes before their note would ever even come into being. Maybe that's
mhm,
the issue, right? And so
mhm,
I'm wondering if instead of it being an age gap issue, which I don't think inherently is a problem, but I do think that he was interested, he, right,
hey,
was
yeah,
interested in teaching you a different technique than what you are interested in teaching.
mhm,
The methodology was antiquated
mhm,
to your interests. So if you had an 80-year-old teaching you how to play Nirvana in a style that you really enjoyed and it worked with your processing, that'd be a whole different story than a
totally different.
20-year-old teaching you how to sit classically, how to play properly, you know, and with the finger on the fretboard, the thumb directly on the back of the fretboard, and that's how you play. No, like it would that would still be worse off than an 80-year-old
Mhm,
teaching you how to play Nirvana in a way that worked for
mhm,
you.
mhm, 100%.
Yeah.
I think I think for me, if I would have been able to learn differently, it would have been something that I would have stuck with. Because as you get a little bit older and you start to sit around the campfire with your mates having a beer or you go on holidays, somebody pulls out the guitar and you're like, oh, gee, I wish I would have stuck with that.
Yeah.
I wish I would have kept doing it. Um, but sometimes the process is too painful. It's like with sports. I was I was an Australian champion athlete for the sport of wakeboarding, and I didn't really have any good coaches, any good teachers. So I had to get very good at teaching myself. So there's no ledger. All you get to do is look at a magazine, look at a video, and break it down. Where the coaches who were out there, they were more like, "Oh, dude," like that they'd say "dude" 100 times, and they'd say, "Just cut harder, dude, go bigger, dude." Like, that was their whole mythology, "Cut harder, go bigger." It's like, there's nothing I can learn from that. So I started to learn how to teach the sport, and through teaching other people, I got better myself over time
Very
because
cool.
they would ask me, "How do I do this trick?" Now, it's like a song. I don't necessarily have to know how to play the song, but I can go out and learn it and teach it. It was like the trick. I might not be able to do it for you, but I can watch the expert do it and teach you how to do it. And in the process, learn how to do it myself.
Very cool. I love that.
And so that was
Learning through the process of teaching.
learning through the process because I believe is to teach is to learn twice. And that's what I found is the more that I taught people the tricks that I was doing, but break it down into a process, and I would teach that, I would get better at those fundamentals. My foundations were really good, and then anything on top of that just became easier. Kind of like
Mm.
getting, holding the guitar properly. You got to get your foundations in there. But people would say, Dan, I don't necessarily want to learn these tricks. And I'd say, well, if you want to do a front flip with a 180, you can probably do that, but you will never be able to turn back around and get your board back around the other way. So
Mhm.
if you want to learn how to do the trick and you want to learn to do that first, the risk is that you're going to hurt yourself. And if you hurt
Mm.
yourself, you probably won't be able to do a 180 for the next 6 months. But if that's the
Ah,
way you want to learn, we'll do it that way. So I'll give you what you want, and then I'll give you what you need, and we'll go from there.
I like it. I
But
like it.
it was always, if I took them way back to the basics where it was just unenjoyable, they would kind of stagnate. And I noticed that with a lot of other coaches. So you
You
had
consider
to
yourself a coach versus a teacher?
yeah. I had a vision when I was younger that I was like a doctor, and being like a doctor, I could see myself helping people get healthy, but I wasn't giving them needles. I wasn't giving them pills. I wasn't cutting them open. And then later on, I learned that the word doctor in Latin is docere, which is to teach.
Oh, no way.
So to teach is to be a doctor, and I like that. But the way that my brain works is it's more process driven than content driven.
Mm.
I've read all the books, I've done all the studies, but I don't necessarily want to get down into the nitty gritty details. If you want all the nitty gritty details, just go to the book, go and read the book. But if you want to learn, I will give you the process. Do step one, step two, step three, step four, step five. And that's my preferred way because I don't want to teach the details.
Mm.
It's like with a lot of things on the planet, I think there's nothing new under the sun. And what we do today, it's a refresh. It's like the 12 musical notes, they're all there, but it's just a different way of playing it. And with a lot of this information, in my field, it's been studied for thousands of years. The wisest people have written the same book for the past 2,000 years. It's there. It's cheap. You can go to a book and get the knowledge for $5, but you need me as the expert to give you the process so you can accelerate it.
I love that.
So
Absolutely.
that's what I
Yeah.
prefer. So I
We
take
think
it as a coach approach.
yeah. Yeah. I think that's great. That's also similar to how I teach. Um, I sort of outsource the teaching of technique to, for example, Museflow, right? The app that I built. It is used like that with a 3 or 4 different private teachers that we have using it right now. They outsource the teaching of technique to Museflow. So they say, go home, practice levels 1 through 4, and then come back and in lesson then becomes a coaching session
Mm.
for the songs that get unlocked after that. So you learn the technique of how to play the new notes and the new rhythms in Museflow. Great, that's your homework. Then you come back into lesson and let's actually talk about what we like to call musicianship, okay?
Mm,
Which is, why do you want to play the song that way?
mm,
Or how do you want to play that song, right? Do you want to increase in volume here? Why? What about that? Do you want why? Let's break it down. Let's talk about the reasons and the reasons why and how. And let's talk about then how are we going to actually replicate the emotion that you want the audience to resonate in? How are you going to perform the song the way that you want it to be perceived? Let's talk about those details. And let's write that on the sheet music and let's practice it. Let's perform that. Let's perfect that. And over and over and over through the exploration of the musicianship of it, we then get it to a point where it is very emotionally resonant for the student and
mm,
very emotionally palpable and resonant for the audience. That's that coaching session, right?
mm,
And so it is a reframe of the lesson because a
mm,
lot of teachers think the lesson is supposed to be there to just simply drill
mm,
the technique, and musicianship comes later.
mm,
Yes, musicianship is secondary to the teaching of technique. Yes, but you don't have to spend your lessons, your precious private interactions with your students. You don't have to spend that drilling it over and over and over. No, no, no. Give that to us. Give
mm.
that to Museflow. And then what's special about the human connection of music, the emotion of it all, that's what you explore in lessons.
Mm.
So I find that more effective. You
And
know,
that you can't get out of a book.
can't get out of the book. No.
Can't get it out of the book. Somebody's got to be there walking the path with you.
Yes. Yes. And that's
And
a
that's
coach.
the
That's a
coaching
coach.
aspect. Yep.
I love
There's
it.
two types of approaches. There's in my field, we say there's the sage from the stage. So, like for example, a Tony Robbins, he stands up there and he
Sure.
looks like he's been nailed to a crucifix, and he says, "I'm not your guru." But what he's really saying linguistically is, "I am your guru,"
All right. All right.
and he's the sage from the stage. That works. But then there's the guide from the side. And the guide from the side is walking the path with you step by step along the way. And they're pointing out the threats and the opportunities along the way. And when you stumble, they're there to help you get back up. It's like the personal trainer. I'm going to be there with you as you do the sit ups, but I'm not doing the sit ups for you. I can do
Right.
all the sit ups in the world and get a six pack. It's not going to change your flabby guts. You've got to do it
Right.
yourself.
Right.
And when you
Right.
get to
Right.
the fourth one, you're supposed to get to six. I'm going to keep motivating you and maybe just give you a little bit of a push and a little bit of a help to get to the fifth and the sixth one.
Yep.
And that's
Great.
enjoyable because you feel so much progress in coaching. Where sometimes with the acquisition of just knowledge and being lectured at, you get to the stage where you go, oh my gosh, I'm so ignorant. And then it must be so much more that I need to know. And then we get paralysis via analysis and we get stuck in the learning cycle and we never get out.
Yeah.
But we've got to get out and implement what we know. And that what we know should just get us to the next step. Okay, now we'll refine it.
Hmm.
And that's
Hmm.
the coaching aspect.
I think that's such a wonderful, valuable relationship to have. That coach, those mentors that you need.
Mm,
I feel like we all need that in some form or fashion. Again, we're
mm,
so community oriented that like we've
mm.
got to have the coach, the what would you call it? The guide from the side.
The guide from the side.
I love those relationships.
Like for a mentor, in my life, I have a gentleman by the name of Bob Korf, and he's one of the top voice coaches in Hollywood. And he's trained 1,000 A-list celebrities. So when I go to Bob for voice coaching, he's not looking at the content of what I'm going to say. He expects that my content has already been refined because I'm the subject matter expert.
Hmm.
His job is to help me articulate it and to be that soundboard. So when I say it a particular way, it's like, have you tried it this way? Or have you tried it that way? Or could you elongate that vowel a little bit longer? And it's the refinement on it. It's to get to stage. If I want a teacher in my field, I don't necessarily need to know the teacher. I don't have to sit in their lecture. I could listen to it on YouTube. I could read their book. I
Hmm.
could have that. But the coach is somebody who's totally different. You got the mentor. Mentor is just going to give you some worldly experience. The teacher's going to give you all the content and everything that you need to know, but then the coach is there to bring out the best version of you. Okay, so
Yeah.
you want to be a little bit like Kurt Cobain, but you want it to be a little bit less grunge and a little bit more like this. Okay, let's get you there. Or if you want to take, I went to see Pavarotti, by the way, sing. I saw that. That was a great pleasure. Now, I
Oh,
don't want to be
nice.
like Pavarotti, but what if I could sing that song like Jonathan Davis from Korn? Yeah, now that'd be epic. Now
Yeah.
I'm interested.
Yeah, interesting. Nessun Dorma, like sing that song, the classic Pavarotti tune, in
Yeah.
that corn style. That'd be fantastic. You should practice that. I'd love to hear that.
Oh, well, I got the right microphone. So you've taken music, you're now putting this into an app. When do people typically start their journey with your technology?
Whenever you want.
Mm,
It is it's for everybody. We have older people that are retired that are professionals. They're very good pianists. They're currently using it as a form of meditation. They they have a very stressful job, or they're retired and they simply want to sit down, and they for the people that are working, there's two users in particular that I think about. Um they have very stressful I asked them, I'm like, they already completed our curriculum so far. We've only got unit 1 out so far. But that's 14 notes, that's 2 octaves, that's both left and right hand playing polyphonically, multi notes at one time. And so I'm like, great, that's 4 rhythms, 5 rhythms, and you're in 3 different keys, time signatures. You're like, wow, that's a good established, right? Good established base. They've already completed unit 1, and I'm like, and they're playing level 27, level 26. We have a level 0. So it's level 26. They keep playing it over and over and over, 30 minutes a day. And I'm like, what is this? Why are you doing this? And so I had to email them, and I asked them, why are you playing level 26 over and over and over? You've already beaten it. And both of them said the same thing. I have a very stressful job. I use Museflow as a way to bridge the gap between my work life and my home life. I need a way to forget about my work, ground myself in the present, lower my heart rate so I can be with my family. And that's what they use it for. They use it as that transition. It lowers their heart rate. They read the music that is always changing and never repeats. It is it is the music, and that is what every level is composed of. It is this constantly generative music that is constantly evolving and changing, and always keeping you at that place where you're just pushing a little hard right outside of your comfort zone. We
mm,
call that where you're challenged, where the challenge meets the skill level, right outside, right in your flow state, right? And so we keep you right there, and then you pass the level. And so we're able to do that. You're able to do that. You're able to find your own flow by increasing the tempo, however you want to do it, or going to a higher level. Now, they've already gone to the higher level, so they're playing it at a much higher tempo. We've got free play where it's not being judged, and you simply can just play indefinitely at
mm.
that tempo, at that difficulty level. And that's what they do. It lowers their heart rate, it grounds them in the present, and so that they can be with their family. We have young kids using Museflow, 8 years old, with their teacher. Just like I said, the coaching, right?
Mm,
Those relationships. We've got 10-year-olds that are just doing it because they're part of a homeschool program that their parents put them in, right? Their parents were like, I want you to learn music. And so Museflow seems to be the best option. And it's a game. And so, well, why don't you do that instead of watching TV or scrolling TikTok? Let's have you do that. And they use it there. We've got 15-year-olds that are doing it on their own accord. They've gotten their parents' credit card and they put it in, and they have a subscription and they're using it on an every other day or every day sort of basis. And then we get mid-career and later career. Yeah, we got the whole spectrum, which is really cool. It's not
mm.
meant for one specific demographic. No.
So fascinating from a product sales perspective is sometimes we create a product and we think a user is going to use it for this particular reason, but then to hear
Absolutely.
that they start to use it for meditation,
I
they
had
start
no
to use it
idea.
to reduce the systolic pressure in the heart, which has been proven.
Mhm.
I think music between 55 hertz and 75 hertz lowers systolic pressure, blood pressure in the heart,
Yep.
changes the skin temperature of the body.
That's so cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I'll send you some good stuff over
I
later.
would love to read that, please. Oh, that's so
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah, I had no idea that Museflow, that a product that I co-founded. I basically I invented this with my good friend Stephen Gizzy, who is a music teacher, and so we came together because we had very similar ideas. What if there was a new way to learn how to play an instrument that wasn't based on the repetition to perfection of songs,
Mhm,
right? What if there was a new way, a different way that had an indefinite amount of sheet music at very specific difficulty levels, and we were able to just play that and learn the skills that way. And then once I've mastered the skill outside the context of songs, I can then apply what I've learned to songs,
mhm,
right? So we're just adding another step before we get to songs, but that step is gamified. It's
mhm,
very flow inducing. And yes, turns out is very meditative.
mhm.
I had no plan on this being a meditation. No, that was not a part of our goal, but to then see users do that and use it that way blew my mind. Blew my mind.
The different ways to learn, it's for me, when we were wakeboarding, one of the hardest thing was to learn how to spin. And to spin, you have to have a handle, you have to have your boat, you got to be out on the water. And so the only time you can practice is to be on the water. But
Mm,
with a lot of practice comes a lot of money because it costs a lot of money to have a boat and then to put the fuel in it.
of course.
And then it becomes exhausting because whenever you catch an edge, people don't realize that water feels like concrete when you hit it really hard. So the biggest breakthrough for us was the introduction of the trampoline. So somebody started to
Oh,
make these
okay.
trampolines and they were circular. They were huge. So we lived on 6 acres and my parents said, well, why don't you get a trampoline? So we got a trampoline and then we got a rope and we tied it to the top of a tree and we put a handle on it. And we would jump up and down on the trampoline for 2, 3, 4 hours a day and would spin, spin, spin. And because we were constantly learning, but we're off the water, by the time we got back on the water, it accelerated the learning.
Oh,
The other thing that we started to do was to practice our flips. Now, you can't practice your flips on dry land because if you land on your neck, you're going to break it. But on the trampoline, if you land on your neck, it doesn't really matter. So we
mm.
started to practice our flips and spins on the trampoline. And having that as our app back in the 1990s
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
is
yeah.
what enabled our generation to get to the next level of riding. And what happened was we went from doing 360 spins to 720s. And then we went from doing a single flip to a double flip really
Yeah.
quickly. But we just had our app was the trampoline.
You
And that
needed
was
you
so
needed
fun.
that. That's so interesting. I love that. You needed the introduction of the trampoline into the learning process
Yes.
to level you up, right?
Yes.
That's so
Because
cool.
we could do it as often as we wanted. Kind of like the
Right.
piano. My mum had a baby grand at home, but you couldn't always just hop on the piano because it's too loud for everybody else in the house. My
Yeah.
drum kit, I could play it after school, but then the neighbors come home and then they would complain. And then the bass guitar that I had, I could play, but there was no, I didn't have headphones back then. I had a big amplifier, but the low tones pissed everybody else off around the neighborhood.
Yeah, yeah,
But the trampoline was our app. And so I can
yeah.
imagine what your app's doing for your students. It gets them engaged and it gives them more time. And I still believe that time is one of the most important things we need in learning. It's the repetition of it.
Mhm.
But it's got
And
to
I
be
consider the
convenient.
repetition in the right ways, right? Like, we're not gonna
Mm,
repeat the same music. No. That actually doesn't teach you the core concept that you need to learn, whether that's a new
mm,
note or a new rhythm or a new time signature. No, no, no. That's just gonna teach you the song by rote.
mm,
That means you're just gonna memorize the piece, and then that's it, and then you're not gonna be better at learning another song
mm,
with that new skill in it.
mm,
You're not gonna be better at it. It's
mm,
not gonna make you faster, or if it does, it can be incremental, right?
mm,
So I was thinking, I'm like, well, why, why do we have to be bound by the song, right?
mm,
Um, so it just depends on the methodology. I think that there's yours was the trampoline, right? And that works for you because you're very kinesthetic.
mm,
You got to feel it in your body to really
mm,
understand it. And the trampoline was a perfect gymnasium for that.
Mhm.
It allowed you to fail without hurting yourself.
Mhm. You go
A-
up,
And
you
you,
come down, you land on your feet. If you're
right?
unlucky, you fly off the side of the trampoline and hit the metal.
Well, I mean, safer than a concrete slab or like, water that is very expensive to get onto,
Mhm.
prohibitively so,
Mhm.
that you can't just do it all the time, right? So trampoline was like a perfect middle ground. So cool. So
And
cool.
you can't have your and you like the same thing with your coach. You can't have your coach there all the time. If you've got the coach there all the time, it becomes your crutch.
Mm,
I don't know if you've had this experience before, but I had a personal trainer for about 2.5 years at the gym,
mm,
and I loved it. I didn't have to think about it. Coach was always there to do all the preparations.
right.
But unfortunately, because I only ever had him there when I went to the gym, after I stopped using his services, I was afraid to do it by myself. And I had to go through this transitionary period where I was like, oh my gosh, I'm afraid that I might get hurt. I might not be able
Mm,
to do it without the coach. So you've got to have both your teacher, your mentor, your coach, your apps, your technology.
yeah. Yeah. Bless
Excuse me.
you.
Thank you. That's the golden retriever. He's trying to get some attention. Now he's
Yeah.
giving me his golden hairs. Patrick, where can we learn more about your technology and what you're doing?
Just go to the website, museflow.ai, and you can it's a web app. You can sign up through the browser and try it out through the browser. Make sure to use Chrome. That's the best browser to use, or Edge. Don't use Safari. Safari blocks MIDI compatible devices, and so you need a MIDI keyboard, and you jack that into your computer or your laptop. We've built out the iPad app, so you can also go to the iPad store. On your iPad, you can go to the App Store and download it from there. It's interesting how it doesn't show up on iPhone or on your computer if you go to the App Store. It only shows up if you're on the iPad.
Mm.
And so got to go to the iPad, got to go to the App Store that way. And so then you can put your iPad on your keyboard and jack it in that way. Yeah, that's take a gander. I'd love to hear your thoughts. If anybody who's listening is interested in music education or piano education, wants to find a new way, maybe the old method didn't work for you, or maybe you're ADHD like me and you cannot freaking stay concentrated on a freaking thing ever, and it's extremely frustrating. Try a game that gets you into flow state, that challenges you just a little bit outside of your comfort zone, keeps you in that pocket and gets you going for hours. Maybe that'll do it
Patrick,
for you.
thanks for your time. Thank you so much.
Absolutely my pleasure, Daniel. Thank you so much
Thanks,
for
mate.
having me.